And we have two guys from Pit Malibu here with us. We have Glover Teixeira live from Pit Malibu. Well, he's not live, but he's here from Pit Malibu. And we got Rick Metzler, the owner of Pit Malibu, Rick Metzler. So we have a full house there. We got the doc, me, Glover, and Rick. And we're going to talk about something very, very important. Two things, actually. Number one, I keep looking at the screen there instead of there. Number one, we're going to talk about how you can train super hard like we do and not get hurt. Okay? A lot of people train really hard and are always injured. I love Cain Velasquez. When's the last time you seen him fight? Think hard. It was in the 1900s. Okay, it's been a while. And it's because, I'm not saying 100%, but I think he might be injured a lot. I'm just saying. You think so?
Maybe, yeah. Like hardcore training.
They do hardcore training. And let me just tell you, the only way you can get into hardcore shape and be ready for a fight, whether it be in the UFC cage or in the street, you have to train hard. But if you don't train right, you're always going to be injured. And even worse, you're going to get brain damage. You're going to be punchy. All right? That's not pretty. I've seen that happen. So, we're going to talk about, we have like a round table right here. We're going to talk about how can you train really hard and what's our experience, because we have a wealth of information, of experience right here. I have been at this since 1970. How old were you in 1970?
I wasn't born.
How old were you in 1970?
I wasn't born either.
Man, fuck you both. How old were you in 1970?
I was born.
How old were you? You were 1 year old?
I was getting ready to train though.
I hate you all. I hate you all. I started training in 1970. And let me tell you something. I'm 60. And I don't have injuries. So I'm doing something right. All right? I'm ugly as shit, and I'm not really successful in anything. So I'm doing some things wrong. But besides that, I'm not injured. And I've been training really hard since 70. So since we're all have experience with this, he's a doctor. A doctor. So that means he's smart. Okay? We're karate guys, so that means we're not smart.
Not very smart.
Not very smart. But that's beside the point. Okay. Now, let's break this down into two parts. Number one, jiu-jitsu, which is one of Glover's expertise, they get hurt a lot because they're pulling and tweaking on joints all the time. So they're known for having shoulder injuries, ankle injuries, knee injuries, etc. Okay, mainly the knee injuries are more the takedowns in the wrestling, but they have a lot of joint injuries. We also are used to doing this a lot, punching each other. And if we punch each other too much, we're going to get cut, we're going to get chronic brain damage, and we're going to get acute brain injuries. So how can you train hard without doing that? All right, let's go first. Let me get your opinion first to the only UFC fighter. He's not just a UFC fighter, he's a UFC contender. There's a difference, guys. You can be a UFC fighter, but he's also a UFC contender. What do you think the secret, the line is, the sweet spot, that's the word. What's the sweet spot between training really hard for a fight, but trying to stay injury-free? So where do you draw the line, and where's the spot that you pull back or you go harder?
I think conditioning helps a lot. Conditioning is the most important for prevent injury.
Okay.
When you stay fit, stay conditioning off camp, and when fight comes, camp start, and you start sparring, of course you're gonna slow down on the condition a little bit because all the sparring, all the wrestling, And I think that's, I mean, I'm very blessed, and I never have big injury. Only my hand last lot was happening in a fight, but I never really have injury to pull out a fight or anything. So I think because of conditioning, I'm always doing conditioning. I'm always the problem with the guys I see in my gym and everywhere that I go. People don't do much conditioning. They come out of shape to get ready for a fight, and they start wrestling hard right away, and start whatever sparring hard right away. And those muscles, whatever the ligaments, is not prepared. It's not like it's not there. It's like it's weird. So I guess my opinion is conditioning. Always
So stay in shape.
stay in shape.
In between fights, guys, stay in shape.
But I think that's the science behind this that we've talked about, John, is the science of the conditioning, whether you're conditioning your bones or your hands or you're conditioning your ligaments or your muscles, they get stronger with use. So if you're just trying to get ready in 6 or 8 weeks for a fight, you're not going to have the same strength in your bones and in your tendons and your ligaments that you're going to if you stay conditioned or you're conditioning constantly. So there's real science behind what Glover says, keeping your...
Wolf's Law.
Wolf's Law. It's Wolf's Law that we've talked about, and anyone who listens to our podcast has heard us talk about. But your bones actually get stronger the more you use them, and if you stop using them, it goes the opposite direction just as quickly. So staying in shape long term, I think, if you haven't had major injuries or having to pull out of fights, that's got to be pretty rare in the UFC.
It is very rare.
Yeah. I mean, like I only have this injury, in the fight, and like it's like I think I really think the conditioning, man, because I'm always doing hard conditioning, hit the bag hard, and I did I tore some. It was not tore the bicep, but so I went to the doctor and everything in Brazil, because after one of my fights I take 10 days off and I come back and right away, I said I'm gonna start hit the bag. I had 10 days off and I wrapped my hand. I started throwing hard left hook, hard punches, and the bag was a little bit hard, But I used to train with the bag all the time before, whatever. But because I think my muscles was not conditioned well, I felt the bicep. I went over there to the doctor. I tore some fibers. He say it could be a bicep tore because of there, right there, yeah. So. He say, and it's because of, you take 10 days off and you got to start slow, right? You got to start, so you cannot, and that's the problem too, like, I had a little bit problem with that, like, if you, you know what you're doing, all right? You know how much weight you lift, let's say power clean or row and whatever, like, what are you capable to do it, and then you take, like, whatever, a week off or 10 days off, that's enough, like, then you go and you're trying to put that as the same weight or whatever, do the same thing they were doing when you were in very good shape.
How fast do you get out of shape? You didn't even turn that off. I'm going to turn that. It's not yours. It's mine.
It's outside.
But talk about, while I'm gone, talk about how long you think it physically takes your muscles and your cardio to get out of shape in between fights. That's a good one.
So personally, I think cardio... I think you got about 2 weeks. You can kind of just fall off the map for about 2 weeks, and if you don't get back into it within 2 weeks, you start to lose your cardio endurance. As far as building up muscle mass or bone density and those things, you probably have a little bit more time. But definitely your cardiovasculars, I think most people have about a 2 week where they can just take 2 weeks off and get back into it and not lose too much. But anything
It's
past
still gonna
that,
suck.
It's still gonna suck.
After
But
2 weeks, it's still gonna
anything
suck.
past that, I think you
mean,
really start to lose your endurance.
Yeah. The age got a lot to do with that too. When I was young, I didn't have to warm up or anything. I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't need to warm up to start. Let's spar. Okay, 24, 25, I come to the pit. I was like,
Yeah.
but now I need a longer warm up. I need at least half an hour, and that make a big difference too. Because you really feel like before injury, you feel a little pain here, whatever. Like if you're gonna hit the bag, if you're gonna wrestle, if you need a longer warm up, and like. It goes with the age too, right? Like
When you're younger, also
young,
pains go away. So you get some
you
pains
can
when
do
you're older,
whatever. You
and
can do
they're just
whatever.
they're just with you now.
I do about not for me because I don't really care because I don't work out to their extent. But my fight team, I always warm up between 20 and 30 minutes because it's really too long, and it's boring as shit for them. But I don't want any of my fighters to get a pull muscle, a pull hamstring, a pull groin muscle, a pull shoulder in training. I mean, just by not warming up. So to me, it's important or it's worth it to invest. Even it might be wasted, I might be overdoing it. I'd rather warm them up too much than have them.
So
have it.
in my office we see this on both ends. You see it on the I didn't warm up, whether it's men's league basketball and the guys are 40 and they get on the court and the first time they run down the court someone tears their Achilles, or they're playing baseball and they run to first base and tear something, and then you see it on the other end. You see a soccer player who plays for 90 minutes and then at the end they're so fatigued they blow out their ACL. So they're kind of in the middle zone. When we train here, it's an hour usually, but you warm up and then you train and then you don't keep training to where injuries start to happen also.
Right. I'm a firm believer in high intensity interval training. I think shorter is better because we're martial artists and we train for. Most fights aren't going to last very long in the street, and in the cage they last between 15 minutes to 25 minutes. And no fight is it's not a marathon. To me, it's not a sprint either. It's a bunch of little sprints mixed in with some rest. So to me, that's what it's like. All right, now I got a good one.
Yeah, but hold on. You think like just a question because you think like I know we have to do. I do a short workout. We know the condition you do, but you think the short intense workout is better to prevent injury?
No, that's no. But
Oh.
I think a fight. When I say short, it's relative. In other words, I don't believe in doing something for 2 hours and just kind of nonstop.
Okay, yeah.
But I think you should go hard and then rest. Go hard, then rest. So I think a short workout. When I say short, I mean I think most of my workouts, I combine my workouts, physical workouts, with my skill. So a lot of my skill drilling, when you're on the bag, you're working out, believe me, but it's also you're developing your skill. So I combine that with other things like burpees and other calisthenics, but I usually combine that with my skills because I want to combine the two because to me that way it goes in your muscle memory better. But okay, here's a good one. Now, some people, and I know a lot of Brazilian fighters used to believe that they don't need to condition because they're going to grapple or spar their way into conditioning. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
And to me, that's a recipe for injury because you can't push as hard in the contact, whether it be cranking on somebody's arm or punching someone in the face. You can't do that to the intensity that you need to in training to get into the kind of shape you need for the fight without constant and chronic injuries. So I'm a firm believer in getting your heart rate up as high as you can in something like say burpees, airdyne, hard rowing, something else where you're not going to actually get punched in the face really hard or get your arm tweaked, and then practice the sparring drills, but combine drilling and sparring together. What do you think about that?
I that's what I do.
That's what we
That's what I
do.
do. I learn how to do like that, but you're right. Like people spar all the time. It's not gonna. It is a good train. If you don't get injury, I think that's the best train. If I could spar every day 100% and not get injury, that's what I would do. I would not do the condition, but
Right.
you get injury
You can't.
when you do that.
Right. So
If you wrestle every
you can't
day,
spar your way into shape. What do you think, Rick?
I look at the other side of it. I look at guys that are in really good shape, and it's finding the middle ground and being able to know that your good shape is going to work in a fight. So finding the middle ground and working on effective drilling is the closest you're going to get to that, because there's tons of people that are in great shape And then as soon as they start sparring, their breathing patterns, everything are screwed up because they don't know how to use the skills that they've been practicing in that mode of operation. So
Yeah.
finding that middle ground is important.
It's a tough one, and that's why having a really good coach is really important, because it's hard to do it on your own, especially if you don't have the experience to do it. But you need somebody to push you and to be able to pull you. Like with someone like two people I can think of right now that more than anyone else I know, and could be anyone else in the whole world, Glover and Court McGee. If you don't rope them in, if you don't tame them in their training, they're gonna train way too hard. They're gonna be like overtrained in a heartbeat.
I did it for a couple of my fights.
Yeah, you did.
I did for a couple of my fights. Yeah.
Yes, you did, and I wasn't training them at the time.
No.
And then there's other people just as good. I'm not saying it's worse or better, but there's certain people of fighters, they love to fight, they don't love to train. Glover and Court love to train, and they're fanatics. But I have some guys that love to fight, not love to train. So I have to actually push them harder, because you have to be here. If you train too hard, you're here, and it's not good. If you train not hard enough, you're here. So you want to train your guy here. You have to know when to pull your fighter, and you have to know when to push your fighter. And some fighters have to be pushed more, and some fighters have to be pulled more. So that's a really, really fine line. And a trainer, if you want to be a trainer or a coach, you have to learn that every fighter, every athlete, every student you have is different. When I'm doing my class with I got Doc in there and I got other people, but I have to feel the energy of the class. And sometimes I push them harder than I was going to, and sometimes I pull them back, because I can tell when they're pushing it to their limit. And you have to be able to do that. So I don't think you can train. I don't think you can spar your way into shape. But then again, I don't think you can't spar at all. Because if you don't spar at all, you don't know what it feels like to get punched in the face. You don't know how you're going to react. But if you get punched in the face too much and that you depend on that for your training, you're going to have you're going to talk with a slur, and you're going to be drooling a lot and not remembering your name. And you're going to have broken bones if you do that when you grapple. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, and what I see you do in the class, and the injuries that I see in my office, I also see injuries when there's kind of a skill mismatch, and it's usually the guy that's better that gets hurt. But I've seen that here too. So I'm always trying to train in the class with the black belts or someone better than me. Maybe it's more dangerous for them. I don't know. But I do see that, especially if I spar with people that are brand new, I think there's definitely way more chance of getting hurt too. So
that's tough for us. Like for me, I know for me, Rick and Glover, it's tough because, well, I'll give you one example. Like, okay, I'll bring Glover. So Glover, I think when we first started sparring, I could beat Glover, and I used to get mad like with Glover or Chuck or some of my fighters, and I would hit him and I'd be like, bro, block, and they'd be like, oh, okay, I'll try, and then I keep sparring them. Then the time goes on, and then all of a sudden they're blocking and hitting me really hard, and then I'm like, oh shit, I made a huge.
Really mad.
Then I made a
Then
huge.
you got really mad.
I got really mad because you make that mistake where it's not. That means you're a good coach, but you're screwed because now your students are going to beat the shit out of you. So you have to have students that have some control, because your students hopefully are going to be able to beat up on you someday. If they're not, you're not really a good coach, or you're just some kind of freak athlete. But all my students, I think almost every one of them has gotten to a point where they're able to kick my ass. And that's like the best day of a coach's life and the worst day both rolled up in one, because you're so happy that they finally got it. But now you're so sad because now you're going to get your ass whooped by someone else. When I tested Chuck and Rick for their black belts, I was all over like, I'm going to show them and I'm going to teach them. I ended up bloodier than they were after the black belt test. And I felt really proud that I just promoted my guys to black belt. but I don't think I could breathe out of my nose for like 2 weeks. So it's good and bad. It's good news. It's good news and bad news. So as a coach, it's so important to be the person that can push and pull and realize that drilling is the new sparring. You know how they say, what do they say? Something is the new something.
Orange is the new black.
Or that's a show, right? Orange is the new black. Or they'll say like, I know, on age. Like I'm 60, but like 60 is the new 40. I don't feel like that, but you know what I mean. I've heard that before. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? Like this is the new this, right?
We're all with you. Go on.
Are you serious? You're looking at me like I'm stupid. Okay, so what I'm saying here is drilling is the new sparring, and it's taking over. I think people, even boxers, don't beat the shit out of them all the time like we used to. We used to do that in the pit too, but we've realized that you don't have to beat the shit out of each other all the time to learn how to fight and to get in shape for your fights. You do have to do some sparring, but I think the bulk now of our contact is drilling. So and I think most of the good teams are doing that, and some of the teams don't do it as much, but they're the ones that have the most injuries. What do you think about that?
I got to interject that there's people that try and do drilling that don't have an effective way of doing it, that only know how to spar or not, because their way of drilling might not be as effective as yours or other teams that are doing it well.
Yeah, and we do it well. I mean, I think we have an unbelievable record of my guys. Like when I watch my guys fight now, they're at a higher level, just as high as any of my fighters have been. And my fighters now, I think when they're training for fights, say it's an 8-week thing, they probably spar 10 minutes a month when you put it together. It's so little, because I do like a minute of sparring, and then I'll do like 5 minutes of drilling, and probably it's just not necessary. It's just not.
So other than risk of injury, what do you think? Because I can think of things that it seems like it promotes even better than sparring. Confidence, maybe if someone's kind of nervous to use certain techniques, it helps develop the confidence to go ahead and try it because they know they're not going to get cranked on. Are there things like that you see that it even
drilling?
that drilling's even better than sparring?
Yes.
Other than risk of injury, I'm talking about skill sets.
Yes. Muscle memory, ingraination. Can you say ingraination?
You can say whatever you want.
But is it like if you're ingraining muscle memory into your muscles, which you don't really do physiologically, but that's how I explain it. To me, you're ingraining these techniques that they're doing over and over and over again that I want them to do in the fight, because when they're sparring, they're not always doing that.
Yeah.
But I like especially setting up a takedown, defending a takedown. When you're drilling this so many times, then it happens in the fight. It's just second nature. In the sparring, it's hit and miss because you don't know what's going to happen because it's spontaneous. So maybe you need more work on drilling the takedown defense, but you're not getting it because the guy's not taking you down. So I think that fear, the risk of injury and chronic and acute is the main thing that sparring is. That's the main downfall of sparring. But I think getting to be more repetitive on your drill, on your techniques, I think drilling helps even more. So if there was no threat of injury, chronic or acute, then I would say I would go half and half, and I would still have them spar half and if there was no threat of injury, I would have them spar their way into shape. But there is. And people are getting hit in the head too much, and they're getting cut, and they're getting knees, and then even one of the worst injuries, or the most common injuries, I think, is freestyle sparring with takedowns. And then somebody goes one way, and they're trying to take them down the other. Next thing you know, there's a freaking blown knee. So I like to drill takedowns with the knees, but I want them to have some kind of feel of a takedown on spontaneous sparring. So I have them do half shots. so they don't go all the way through it, but it still keeps this guy alert, so the guy's not, he has to realize the guy's going to come down. But I still don't want him to go on. And one thing I tell people is when they say, how are they going to realize what a real fight is? I mean, a real fight, they're going to get hit in the face full on. And I'm not talking about my fighters. I'm talking about my martial artists for the street. Well, how are they going to realize how a real punch is going to feel? They should feel that punch. And I just say, and if they're a cop, they should feel the bullet going in. Or if they're, you know what I mean? If they get attacked with a knife, should they feel the slice on their face? Because then how are they going to realize? They're not going to realize 100%. But I still think that injury, that threat of injury, that chance of injury is not worth that. And I think you can drill effectively as a regular martial arts student or even as a fighter to be able to accomplish your goals. In sparring, in a fighter like Glover, he does have to spar a little bit more and a higher level, and he does have to roll at a higher level because that's his profession. But if you're a regular martial artist, I don't think you need to go to that level anymore. I don't think there's any reason for it.
But drilling is like you can never stop drilling, no matter how much you know. Like
right.
You can be the best like a left hook in the world, but you can have the best left hook in the world, but if you stop drilling, you're gonna
lose it like that.
And if you spar, you know, when you spar a lot and you stop drilling, you start getting sloppy too.
Yeah.
Start throwing wide punch, chin up, you know. So you gotta. That's how you get to us. You start, like, I remember, like, we start getting, like, a little bit crazy, and you stop the sparring and start drilling and tell, like, hey, all right, see what you guys doing. Keep your chin down, hands up, don't pull back.
And then when they go back to sparring, it's better.
And it's funny because I was doing a seminar in Connecticut last couple weeks ago, and, you know, I was doing a seminar for the SWAT team. I take the guy down, just showing the stuff, and I was going to grab his hand. He's like, yeah, we usually don't grab the hand. Because one cop got really in a situation, you know, they drill like to take the gun and they give it back. He said it happened really situation, a real situation. He take the gun from the, I don't know if I believe, I don't know if he was joking around with me. It was a woman. She take the gun out of the guy's hand and give it back to him.
That's muscle memory.
It wasn't
That's
joking.
drilling.
He was
drilling.
joking with me, all right? I didn't believe him. Like, I don't believe he said. He look at me and say, I swear to God, this is true.
I can see that.
I swear to God, it happens. It was like, you know,
I can see it. Two things I don't like my guys bowing before they spar anymore. Okay? And I don't like them ever helping each other up, not because of the gun thing, but because I don't want that. I want that guy to have to get up because in a real fight, getting up is tiring.
Yeah, I mean, in wrestling, we train wrestlers all over the world. You know, train with like Steve and even with Chuck. I remember, like we never help each other up. We take him down, they get out. I mean, I did it because I was doing a seminar. I was just trying to, but yes, we never help.
That's a good point.
You down, you get up in your own.
Maybe you won't want to go down again.
Yeah, and the bowing, I like. The bowing is important after sparring, but to me, I don't know, like two kids in the schoolyard, I don't want it to be a sparring match. So to me, if they're so used to bowing, I want the sparring or drilling to mimic what they're going to be like when they really fight. So I want it to just go. I want them to, sometimes I make my students, adults too, but mainly kids, say things to each other like, you're ugly today, or just something silly, but it's something, a negative thing, and then I want them to start sparring or drilling because I want that's what's gonna trigger a fight in the street, not a bow and okay, let's spar. I want it to start off like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but as martial artists in the cage, it's always nice to see them respecting each other before they fight.
Yeah, and those are pro fighters, and they're so at a different level than most of us. So I mean, it's beautiful to watch the bushido or the respect that fighters have for each other. I know for a fact all my guys, anyone that's been in contact with the Pit, Glover, Chuck, all my guys have shown utmost respect, and it's always. I mean, it makes you proud, but it's terrible to watch that. But in the street, there's no fucking respect. You should.
But you know, John mentioned something. So it's like it's really like cool that he say like that he tell his student. I would do it differently. I'll be like, hey Rick, Doc over here say he knocked you down last week. Then I go and say the same thing to him. So but anyway, it's true. It's true. Let me tell you why. It's good. Respect. I always respect people. I don't care. I'm a fighter, man. I walk in there and I fight. I don't care who. But you're right. It's a fact. I seen people that he's always respecting everybody that he fought, like 6-7 fight, was respect with him. And then when he fight a guy like McGregor that's coming to your face and you hit him, he's like, that's all you got, bitch, all those things. Then the guy, he never happened, that never happened to him before. Every time he was fighting, so he goes in his head, for sure. No doubt. No doubt they're like, if he's only used to like, hey, okay, bout, and let's go, let's fight, And
but you can go on the other. You can see that on the other side because if you get like if you killed him with kindness, like you killed McGregor with kindness, and he yelled at you, just saying, "Okay, you're the greatest," and then you might like freak him out. You go, "Damn it, what are you doing? I hate you. I'm gonna kill you." And he's like,
Was it the guy that fought? It was the Argentina guy that fought Muhammad Ali. That Muhammad Ali was like, forget his name. I show him in YouTube.
From Argentina.
From Argentina, he's like he kept telling Muhammad Ali Muhammad Ali was talking all this thing, and he just you got baby face, and grab Muhammad Ali's face, and Muhammad Ali, hey man, don't do that to me, and then he just laughed. He just
threw him off.
He did throw him off, and Muhammad Ali actually walked out of the interview laughing. That guy's like, I can't be mad at this guy.
Oh my God!
I like that.
See,
it's crazy.
He killed him with the respect.
He killed him with respect. That's what McGregor or even Diaz. I don't think it worked with Diaz. It might work with McGregor because I think McGregor's is an act. It's a really good act, and
he always respects him after the fight though. It's an act because after the fight,
I think he's very.
He kneels with him. They respect each other.
I think he's respectful, and I think the Diaz brothers are too. But I mean, if they start getting in your face, kill him with kindness.
I like that.
You think it will work with Tyson?
No, because but Tyson isn't anything like that. Tyson is just an intimidation. He's not talking shit.
No,
it's. I mean, once he started talking shit, it didn't work for him because like, I'm gonna eat your baby. It's just like that wasn't really intimidating, but he was intimidating just by his look, and that one's hard too.
Pacing like a tiger.
Like he's about to kill you. It's like
that's
so that one would be hard to deal with because how do you deal with that? But like if someone's talking shit to you, because you could deal with that. Tyson's intimidation was probably the worst since Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston's was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But it was a different one.
Yeah,
Sonny Liston's was just like this.
He was.
He's just like a big, like his was like, what's that black guy on Star Wars? Darth Vader. Like he was just this big Darth Vader. Mike Tyson was like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Sonny Liston was just a stone cold killer.
I think Sonny Liston he was, but he acted a little bit, He wanted to be the bad guy. Tyson in the beginning, he didn't. He just wanted to fight. Later on, like after, like you say, he's like, hey man, this is working for me, I'm the bad guy. But in the beginning, he didn't, but he was.
He overdid it.
He didn't care, but he was.
Yeah. I think he was so intimidating, but then when he started, towards the end, he started getting too, like, it wasn't intimidating at all. It was just, it didn't come out. And then he just became a hated guy. And now, you watch him now, he's reinvented, man. Mike Tyson, he's admitted. I mean, how many guys do this? Very few of us do this. I do that. I've admitted many times what just a terrible human I was in my past. But not many people like Tyson, such a public figure, he's admitted all his wrongdoings and he's reinvented himself. He seems like, and I bet he is now, you met him and you were he was one of your idols, and then he watched you fight and he came in the cage and remember you guys were hanging out. He seems like a great person now.
Yeah.
I mean, he just seems like he does, doesn't he? He's he seems like he's really genuinely family oriented. He just seems like he outgrew all that stuff. He admitted it. He admits it. He puts all of it out there and just says, I was a terrible person. And I'm trying to be a better person now. He makes jokes about the ear. Remember that skit he had with
He's always
Evander?
making jokes. He's always
Yeah.
making jokes.
His
Funny guy.
podcast is called Bite the Ear or something, isn't it?
Bite the mic.
Bite the Mic. He's Glover's favorite fighter. And when Glover first started training, I noticed Glover was a lot like Mike Tyson. So Glover's homework was like after every class or every training session, he had to go study video of Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
And because to me that was that's the closest thing to an idol that I wanted Glover to have, not necessarily his persona or his person, but his fighting style. His fighting style to me is exactly add great jiu-jitsu and great takedowns. That's to me what Glover Teixeira is. It's a Mike Tyson with takedowns and submissions. So anyway, that was my Mike Tyson bit. What do you think?
Well, this is a Pit old school we got in our studio today.
Rick.
That's old school right here.
Rick was my first student, 1985. He says 86, but whatever. I like 85 because it just rounds better. It's a 5, 10, 15, 20. 6 is just somewhere in there. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well. So I always say we started in 85. So I'm going to stick with that, by the way. But 85, so he came with me. And the first time Rick walked in the door of my gym, there was no door. He came through the house because my gym was in the backyard. My wife, when we bought, we got this house. Well, she already had the house, and then we got together. We were both nurses, and then she wanted to build a pool in the backyard. A pool was about $30,000 then, or $25,000. It's like, I don't want a pool. Nobody swims in a pool. Let's build a gym in the backyard. So we said she doesn't want a gym. She wants a pool. So we decided, let's do both. So we built a pool, like $30,000, swam in it twice, and then we built a gym, became the Pit. So I started training guys in the backyard. I started off I wanted me to be in there, but I started training people, and I had a little ad in the Yellow Pages, and then Rick shows up. And Rick had long hair. He looked like Jesus. He had a beard and long hair, and he comes in, and
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah?
His nickname was Jesus. Yeah. And he came in and it was like, I thought to myself, I love Rick, but the first time he came in, I just thought the word that came to my head was douchebag. And it was because he just looked like that long hair, beard, and I was like, and he talked about some other martial art he did, and I was like, I'm gonna kick his ass.
Kung Fu Sansu.
Kung Fu Sansu, whatever. So instead of training him, I said, we're just gonna spar today. So I beat the shit out of him. So like I walked in the house, I swear to God, I walked in the house, he left, and I walked in the house, I told my ex, I told her, he'll never be back. And she just goes, oh, why would you do that? I go, I just don't like him, so he'll never be back. I beat the shit out of him. So like the next day, he comes back, is like, well, I'm here to train. I was like, what the hell? Okay, we're gonna spar. So this happened like 3 or 4 days in a row where I wouldn't even train. I just beat the shit out of him. And I kept telling her he's not coming back this time for sure. But he kept coming back. So like the fourth day, after the fourth time, I think after I beat the shit out of him, I thought, well, I'll train him then. Okay. So we trained a little bit, and I walked back in the house, and I told my ex, I said, I like this guy. I'm going to start training him. And he's been coming every day. He came every day since, and he was the first to get his black belt. He got his black belt the same time Chuck and Eric and Tony the Terrible did.
Did John leave anything out?
There was a Stairmaster in there somewhere.
I did have the old school, not the old school one that had the steps, the one you put your foot in the pedal and went like that.
I still have it too.
That one?
That Stairmaster that had I still have it.
Yeah?
I still have it.
Yeah, that's what we did.
So this was in LA at the time?
Woodland Hills, California. In the backyard. It was in De La Osa Street in Woodland Hills. So if you live by De La Osa, I'm not going to tell you the house number, but it was on De Losa.
That's the original pit.
The original pit. It was in the back. That gym is still there back there, and they used it as a storage room.
And so is the pool.
The pool's still there too.
They
We swam
practice it more.
all that time, all that money.
A little
We
bit.
swam in it like twice. Seriously. So that's where the pit started. That's where Rick started. Let me tell you how Glover came. Now, Glover fought one of our guys, a guy named Eric Schwartz, who he still lives in our town and stuff. And they were gonna fight, and it was both of their first fights.
Where was this?
It was at Tachi Palace. And so they fought, really tough fight. Our guy won, but Glover was like, we saw something in Glover, me and Chuck. And we went into his dressing room after the fight, and we just wanted to tell him, like, how good he did and how much we respected him and how much we liked watching him fight. And we wanted to make sure he didn't feel bad about, because it was such a good fight. And they were like, we'd love to train with you sometime. And next thing you know, he was there.
Greg, my friend Greg Davis, the new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, remember he's the one.
He's the one that set up? Okay, I didn't remember
Greg
that
called
part.
you and say, yeah, he wants to go over there. So
I don't
Where
remember that.
were you living back then?
Connecticut.
You were living in Connecticut then.
Yeah.
So Greg Davis was the middleman? I didn't know that.
Greg called. I say I want. John said I could train with him. It's like, I know John. I can call him.
He's a little train.
Yeah. So he got your nickname.
He got my nickname. Yeah, he was.
He got permission. He asked
He got-
permission.
Yeah.
He did ask.
He was a professional kickboxer, and my name when I was fighting was John the Train Hackleman. So he wanted a nickname. He wanted to be the Train. So I go, okay, I'm not fighting anymore. Take it. So he was Greg the Train Davis.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
That's the one that hooked me up over here. I come over here
forgot
for
that.
a month, and I went back.
That was
and
after you fought Eric?
Yeah.
That was after,
What year
yeah.
is this?
Yeah.
You
And
90.
Eric was my first
94.
fight. Was
94, 95.
well, no. This 2002.
Oh, this was 2002 already?
Yeah.
Man,
2002.
I never would have said
When I
that.
fought Eric.
Wow.
Yes, 2002.
I thought it was in the
2018,
90s.
John.
I know, but I
Spent
thought,
17 years. I mean, spent like 17, 16,
when you're
17
when you're my age, these it just melds.
But it shows you how the martial arts, what it does. One of the original pit black belts fights Glover. He ends up talking to someone else who you knew back from the old days.
Cecil People black belt, right?
Yeah, Cecil People's black belt.
Yeah.
Greg
And then
Davis.
and then he recommends you, and then here we are 19 years later. How fucking
Yeah,
cool
17
is that?
years later, and then
Yeah,
I'm
17.
gonna have dinner with Eric tonight.
Yeah. It doesn't
That's
get
right.
any
Yeah,
better
his
than
first opponent.
He's gonna pay.
Bastard. But so that's how we met. Then I got another story about the Doc. One of my favorite stories. I just told you guys this one today. So Doc comes. We become friends because I went to pick up my stepson from his house because my stepson and his daughter were dating, and we were laying in bed already. Me and my wife,
Yeah,
not
hold
me
on.
and him.
that. Not you.
Not yet,
him.
not-
I don't know. Heather might say something different.
Heather thinks we're lovers. Let me just say
She might know
something.
something.
Heather thinks we're lovers. Every time she
What are you
says,
telling her?
I don't want
Woman's intuition.
every time she says James, she goes, James, where's James, your boyfriend? And she'll say today, even today at lunch, she goes, are you and James doing your podcast? And where's James? Oh, James. But anyway, so I went to pick up Tanner from his house. It was like 9 o'clock. We were watching TV, and she was not feeling like getting out of bed to go pick him up. So she goes, you go pick him up. I was like, okay. So I drive to pick him up, and then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from Heather. Where the hell are you? I go, we're still here. Me and James are talking. She goes, holy shit. So I used to go pick him up all the time from James' house when you go over there to visit his girlfriend. And then me and James became friends. Okay, so
And they broke up long ago.
they broke up long ago, and they stayed together a little longer than they would have.
For us.
They thought we would break up if they broke up. So they were they came to us like, we're not going to stay together, but you guys can still stay together. So anyway, it was funny. But let me tell you, this is a true story. So he's he wanted to train, but he's a surgeon. He has hands and $1 million. He makes like $12 million a year or some shit.
A little less.
So we're like, but it's definitely don't want to hurt his hands. It's different than us regular people, hurting our hands. But I eventually got him training here, and we take a little bit of precaution. He wears a little more stitch tape. We use stitch tape only. Oh, it's over here. We use stitch tape.
Best tape in the business.
Best tape right here, stitch. And he wraps his hands a little more carefully. I like him using the bigger gloves, etc. But he started training. He's a doc. He's they're not known as the most physically tough guys in the world. So I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna train with us. And then not too long ago, this is a true story. Not too long ago, there was a mismatch. There was an odd number of people on the mat, and I was teaching the class, and we were drilling, and there was an extra person, so I'll be his partner. So we're doing tie clinch with knees. So he's been training like a year or so. How long? A year?
It's been almost 2 years.
So almost 2 years. So okay. So he started off, like this kind of like whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, let's do the mitts. I don't want to hurt this guy. We'll do some tie clinching, but he probably won't be much, He grabs me with his tie clinch, and it felt like a fucking vice grip on my neck. And he pounded his knee in, and I almost knocked myself out by hitting my own hands. And then the second that knee hit the pad, the first thought I had was, this guy's okay now. This guy, nobody's going to fuck with him. Nobody's going to fuck with his family. Nobody's ever going to mess with him again. He has it. I could tell by the way he clinched and the way he kneed, I thought, he might just be a doc, but this is the kind of doc, if you fuck with him, he's going to knock your ass out. So that one knee, just like the time Rick first bloodied my nose, or the time Glover first made me knocked out cold or something like that, or this time, I realized I might not be about much as a fighter anymore or whatever, because these guys can kick my ass, but I'm a great coach.
Always.
That's what I'm kidding with.
How's
I might get my ass whooped, but at least I'm a good coach.
How's the rules for doc knock someone out? You have to save him after?
You have to. Yeah, it's a Hippocratic oath.
It's a Hippocratic oath. But let me tell you about his fucking Hippocratic oath. The time he hit me with that knee, the second thing I thought after it was like, oh, this guy's made it now. He's safe. He can protect himself, was instead of that fucking Hippocratic oath, instead of the Hippocratic, whatever you call it, he's a fucking hypocrite. Because he's supposed to save people, and he almost just knocked me out. And he did it with a smile on his face.
I think as long as you do more good than harm, the balance. I'm positive on the balance.
What have you done for me but almost killed me?
Oh, we stitched up your finger.
You stitched up my finger.
I think we're even.
We're even-ish. But anyway, we good?
We're good, man.
All right, so I want to thank Rick, Malibu, Pit Malibu, guys. Best place in the world. Let me just tell you, with Pit Malibu, it's not like you think. They don't train soft over there. Okay, that's the Pit Malibu, but he's a hardcore Malibu. We got Glover Teixeira here, who's probably going to fight in July. And we got Doc here. So we want to thank you guys for being here. Share this podcast, because we are taking over. I love you, Joe Rogan. I mean, I really do. I love your show and all, but we're taking over. Pitmaster and the Doc are taking over. What do you think?
Sean, good to see you.
Bing. Thanks for coming, guys.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Bing.
Man.
Bing.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for coming, guys. Good. Good? Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.